Hello, welcome to Ray-ality TV. I'm your host, Raymond Bakari, and this is my brand new interview show on YouTube. Today, I'm joined by one of the two Republican Cranston mayoral candidates, Cranston Citywide Councilman Hopkins. Councilman Hopkins, how are you doing today?
Very good, Ray. Thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to speak to you.
No problem. It's a pleasure of mine to have you on the show. Just diving right into it for the first question, you are running for the Republican primary in the Cranston mayoral election. What influenced your decision to run to be the next mayor of Cranston?
Opportunity. Uh, my age determined a lot of what I was going to do. Um, as you know, my story, I recently lost my wife in December. And as a result of that, I wanted to continue to give back. I really hadn't made a decision to run for mayor. I was going to run for re-election to the city council, but I had an opportunity to sit down with my good friend, Mayor Fung, and Mayor Trafficante, the former mayor, and talked about running for this position. And they both encouraged me, told me that they would support me. And as I tested the waters throughout the city, I was getting a fantastic response where people seemed to be energized about my candidacy. So I decided to do it.
And if you were elected mayor, what would be your first order of business?
First order would be to meet with the people that work in City Hall to make sure that they're happy about coming to work every day. I want to get to know who the people are that serve the citizens. I want to be able to stop into taxation, stop into the public works office, just to let them know that I'm there to support them. And I want to pick their brain and find out what is it that they want to do that would make Cranston a better city, and how can I make their life a little bit better coming to work every day.
Yeah, and the city of Cranston has dramatically improved under the leadership of Mayor Alan Fung. The city was even named one of the best 50 cities to live in according to 24/7 Wall Street. Do you plan on continuing the vision Mayor Alan Fung has placed, and if so, in what ways?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a fiscal conservative, so I think you'll find that Alan's done a great job holding the line on taxes. We've encouraged new businesses to come into the city. I worked very hard on the acquisition of Topgolf, which is going to be a premier location over on Sauconasset Crossroads. That's going to generate about $1.5 million in taxes every year for the city. But again, I'm cautiously optimistic that we can continue to bring in new businesses. I've got an idea to resurrect Rolfe Street, or the Rolfe Street revitalization plan. I think that could be like a main street in East Greenwich for us. I do have some concerns about some businesses that do want to come in. So I'm always cautiously optimistic, and I think I'm pretty good at listening to what the neighborhoods want.
And while on the topic of the current mayor that I just mentioned in the last question, he did choose to endorse you while the Cranston Republican City Committee endorsed your opponent, Council President Farina. Do you think these conflicting endorsements could hurt your chance in both the primary and general elections?
Absolutely not. I think my opponent did a very good job of stacking the deck. He he went out and got his people, as the council president should. He went out and got his people to basically fill the positions on the Republican City Committee, and they decided that he was the best one for their ticket. In the meantime, I've not only received the support of Mayor Fung, but also Mayor Trafficante, Councilman McCauley, council candidates Riley, council candidate Saylor. So across the board, although he may have gotten that one initial bump, if you ask the people who they want, I think I'm the candidate that they're looking for.
Yeah, and conflicting endorsements like these have happened all over the country, not just in the city of Cranston, especially within the Republican Party, where there seems to be a clear divide between moderate Republicans like Senator Mitt Romney and pro-Trump Republicans like Congressman Jordan from Ohio. What kind of Republican do you see yourself as? Are you more of a moderate Republican or a pro-Trump Republican?
Definitely moderate. I'm fiscally conservative, socially liberal. Whatever happens in somebody's house is none of my business and none of government's business. But I'm the watchdog for the community to make sure that it's a safe one, that we have 21st century schools, that they can walk outside and have some forms of recreation for their kids. So that would probably put me right down the middle as a moderate.
I just want to dive into more of the issues, like some of the current issues that go from national all the way to Rhode Island. The COVID-19 global pandemic is one of them, and it did have a lot of damaging effects on everyone's daily life. One big part of that was when schools had to be closed down and resort to distance learning. Before you were elected to the city council, you were actually a teacher at Cranston East High School for over a decade. As a former educator, what's your stance on reopening the schools for the fall?
Well, I can tell you this, I have a master's degree in education. I really want people to look at me as the education mayor. I'm going to work my darndest to get this bond referendum passed so that we can rebuild our schools. And there's a direct correlation between good schools and good business community. They seem to attract each other. So I've met with the superintendent on a number of occasions, talked to members of the school committee. We have to find a way to fund our schools properly and to rebuild our schools that really haven't been touched probably since the 1920s or 1930s. And we can't do Band-Aid approaches anymore. We need to fix our schools so that the future of our city is bright for our young kids coming up.
Yeah, and schools aren't the only thing in our daily lives that were affected during this pandemic, but so were political campaigns. How has the pandemic affected your campaign for mayor?
Yeah, I've learned to think out of the box a little bit. I've targeted certain neighborhoods where I actually take my truck and you probably have heard it referred to as the H train. Here comes the
Yeah.
Hopkins train. Well,
Yep.
we've got a couple of trucks out there, all fixed up, and we've got a caboose, a trailer that's going to be coming out this week, and we've been using that since 2015 when I first ran. Unfortunately, my opponent came out and made a very disparaging remark referring to it as a heroin addiction. And I was highly offended, as was my family, because my father had always taught us to grow up with character and having a very good name. Remember your name and your word is what I taught my kids. And I was highly offended by that comment. And I've actually doubled down on the H train because people have told me they really know that H stands for Hopkins and that it's a good name and it's going to stay that way.
Yeah, and it does
And
show. Oh, sorry.
yeah, I've done other things. We did a mass mailing to the city to initially get us off the ground because we started late with the fundraising efforts. And eventually what it led to is in the second quarter, as my campaign really took off, we outpaced our opponent by 4-1 in fundraising. We had another very successful fundraiser last night, which generated over $15,000 to add to our coffers. So we're financially in great shape to finish the primary, and then we're going to continue to fundraise. And I think people are getting excited about my candidacy, and we're starting to send more and more envelopes coming in support of it.
Yeah, and all those reasons that, like how you've adapted with your campaign, do show the competitiveness of the Cranston mayoral election. It's most likely where everyone's going to have their eyes on. We're looking at the local politics in our state, and this has created competitive primaries for both parties. Your primary is probably going to be more competitive since it determines Republican Mayor Allen Funk's possible successor. If you do lose this primary election to Councilman Farina, would you convince your voters to vote for him in the general election?
I will support the Republican Party. I've been a member of it since Mayor Trafficante first ran, and I've supported every single mayoral candidate since then. I expect to be the winner, but I'm also at the same time have helped to build a team of solid Republicans to run for council seats, and my focus will be on reestablishing the city council. But I prepared myself to win, to lead them.
Yeah, now I want to go back to more of the issues that are surrounding Rhode Island politics right now, which could relate to Cranston in some ways. And one of those big issues is the argument of defunding the police. As you see in Seattle, the police chief resigned yesterday because of the police department was defunded. What's your stance on defunding the police? And as mayor, would you ever allow the Cranston Police Department to be defunded?
Absolutely not. I'm a person that wants to defend the police, not defund them. I want to give more money to the police to make sure that the resources that they have will support and protect our citizens so that we live in a safe city of Cranston. We have one of the most unique cities in the state because we can go from the water down in Edgewood all the way up to the open fields and farms up in Western Cranston and everything in between, with the largest development in Garden City and Chapel View right in the center of it. We need to keep that safe. You know, I see graffiti as I go into Providence. That's not going to happen under my watch. We're going to have people out there patrolling the streets, making sure violators of graffiti and the broken window system will be prosecuted. And I will fully fund and defend the Cranston Police Department. So much so that I've started a program called the Blue Light Project. If you check my Facebook pages, I have asked everybody in the city to come out and put a blue light on the front door of their house as a symbol of support for our Cranston police and for their own morale as well. I think the police have such a very difficult job to go to every day, and I support them 1,000%. Again, like every occupation, I didn't believe that what the officer did for 8.5 minutes standing on somebody's neck, I thought that was atrocious, and he should be held accountable for that. But at the same time, 99% of the population feels that we need a strong, solid police department, and I think it's government's duty to have a safe society. So I will support them.
Yeah, and it's not only the police that's going through a lot of trouble right now during the pandemic and the civil unrest going on. It's actually also small businesses too. A lot of the businesses are being looted, and also they're suffering in general during this pandemic. If elected mayor, what's your plan for the small businesses during this dramatically changed economy?
Well, like I told you, I'm going to continue to support the small business. I've met with Roy Evans, who's a member of the Patuxent Village Businessmen's Association. I've met with Ray Durfee, who does the same thing on Rolfe Street. I, on a daily basis, go to Cranston businesses and talk to them. I support the barbecue on Cranston Street and Lombardo's restaurant, Marchetti's restaurant, Twin Oaks restaurant, Poco Loco down on Broad Street. I mean, that's who I am. That's what I do. I live in Garden City. I support the businesses there. I'll have a program implemented called Buy Cranston. I've got another one coming out called Cranston Cares. So we're going to be in a unique opportunity to revitalize all of these businesses. And I think I've got the ability and the maturity to bring that about.
And while we're on the topic of businesses, this is somewhat recent news. Like I think last week it was announced. What's your stance on the possibility of a Costco coming to Cranston on Mulligan's Island?
I think it's the wrong location. I've done my homework. That particular area used to be called Slate Hill, which means to me that underneath all that nice green turf that we hit golf balls on is slate. So if we're going to put an asphalt covering over that in buildings, my question is, where is the water going to run to? And I've made it an analogy of, if you look at the Walmart properties on Plainfield Pike, has a similar type of a slope, and the water runs down and literally floods the houses over in Sherwood Estates. I'd be very, very concerned if I lived in Oak Hill Terrace in the abounding abutters over there. Last night I went to the meeting where the developer was going to try to tell the people how there'd be a separation between the properties. Well, the separation isn't going to help the noise from the trucks at 3 a.m. And by state law, they cannot be shut off. They have to idle. It's not going to stop the fact that right now you can't see them. And he made a point of that last night. He said, where the houses are, you're not even going to be able to see where a Costco is going to be. And I said, well, what about in the winter when there's no leaves and they're going to be looking right through all of that forestry? He's not going to put up a 70-foot fence to keep the people from looking at it. And it seems to be popular in that area. When I was the athletic director for the city, I spent a lot of time promoting that as open space. And when we developed that property, we bought it from the state, private development, Mr. Friedman, and we did a great job over there. And if you ask the people that are working there, the volleyball coaches, the golf coaches, they're all making money. It's not like people have this impression that Mulligan's is a failed enterprise, and as a result, it's losing money. It's going to go bankrupt. And that's absolutely not true. The owner of the property may be heading in that direction because of his other affiliations, but not where he's located there. That place makes money. And my vision for it is to continue to expand the recreation. I would like to put in the largest recreation indoor facility in the state right on that property. One of the other problems he has as well is, to build the infrastructure, he needs to redo the roads. Well, one of the entrances, the main entrance, is not owned by the private developer. It's owned by the state of Rhode Island, that chip and putt area where you first drive in. And I don't think the state's willing to give that property up. So as a result, I think the developer is going to have a couple of issues, that being a big one. What's he going to do with the infrastructure? Like we figured that out down at Topgolf. All brand new roads going in, new entrances going in. He's not going to be able to do that. And as a result, when you're looking at 600 to 700 cars per hour going into that facility, you better make sure that you have a pretty good infrastructure and roads so that it doesn't affect the traffic. My argument would be, look at Bald Hill Road or Route 2 on the weekend. Try driving that. You're going to sit in traffic for an hour. We don't want that on Reservoir Avenue. So again, I'm going to promote open space and defend the neighborhoods against Costco.
Yeah, and that's not the only newer issue. Well, this next issue that I want to talk about, it's more of a hidden issue that many voters can agree with, which is polarization. Politics has become so polarized and full of unnecessary division. One thing I like to ask any politician when it comes to their opponent is something the two or more in that respective election can agree on. What's one thing that you can agree with Councilman Farina on when it comes to the issues in Cranston and how to fix those said issues?
Well, I think we both have a care about the people. I know we're both concerned about fiscal policies, which is his strength. My strength will be to hire people and surround myself with the best economic minds possible. Mr. Strom, who's there, has done a great job under the Fung administration, and I like to keep him. My campaign manager is a CPA, so he's going to help us with that part of the job. I'm more of a people person. I'm more of an education person. That's my strength. I've been out with the people, serving as a teacher, as an athletic director, as a college coach for 40 years. I'm more of the players coach, the people's person than my opponent is.
And I'm glad that you mentioned your time as a coach at CCRI, because this plays into one of the two last icebreaker questions I like to ask towards the end of interviews to end it on a lighter note and get away from all the big issues surrounding politics. So before your time on the city council, you were, and after your time as a teacher in Cranston, you also coached for baseball at CCRI, and you were, as you mentioned, an athletic director for the city of Cranston schools. Do you have any favorite sports teams?
The teams that I've coached, my own baseball.
Just in general for any of the sports like basketball, baseball.
Oh God, I love all of it. At this time of my life, I love going on Saturday mornings over to Sherman Park, Sherman Field, to watch my grandson play baseball. That kind of lights me up a little bit. I love baseball. That's
Are you
my
a
sport.
Red Sox fan?
Absolutely. Yeah, my wife was a Yankee fan.
Oh,
so
really?
I lived with that. A lot of my friends are Yankee fans, and I support them as well.
Yeah.
It's always a good, friendly rivalry. But in high school, I was the quarterback of the football team. I was the point guard of the basketball team. And all through college, 4 years, I was a pitcher. So I thought I was always in a position of leadership. It's kind of ingrained in me. And I coached in college for 40 years between Rhode Island College and CCRI. The one thing I do remember in all the teams that I've coached is not necessarily the wins and the losses. My philosophy is always that kids want to know how much you care more than they care about how much you know. And I've lived by that honesty and integrity and maturity. But the best thing about coaching athletics is the journey. The friendships that I've made over the years, the fact that I coached and played with certain players, that then sent their kids to play for me. Now I'm getting second generation kids of former players that still come to my fundraisers. Uh, Thankfully, with social media, I keep in touch with kids that one's an Alaska State Trooper, one runs the Detroit Tigers in Santo Domingo, a couple that I just talked to this week that live down in Miami. So I get an opportunity to keep that friendship alive that I developed as part of that journey being a coach.
Yeah, and the final out of the two icebreaker questions, this is the final question for the interview. So Rhode Island is such a unique state. We all know that. We're the smallest for one, and two, we have a lot of specific things we're known for. In your opinion, what do you think Rhode Island is best known for?
Ocean. We've got the best beaches in the world. My wife was from Newport. Newport is a great tourist attraction. Sometimes I think, there's a term, familiarity breeds contempt. Some people in Rhode Island kind of take it for granted that we live in such a beautiful area. I mean, I've traveled all over the world through my coaching experiences, and I spend a lot of time in Orlando, but I also love coming back to Rhode Island. It's such a unique place. It has city, it has country, it has access within 1 hour. We have some of the greatest beaches and tourist attractions in the entire country. So I would say tourist attraction would be a definite number one, and we continue to keep that open space going. I think that's important to sell Rhode Island as a tourist attraction, as a destination, but also to let out the people of this state know that we live in one of the most unique places in the world, having Brown University and Providence College and the Big East Basketball Conference, the Patriots 20 minutes up the road with their plane right at our airport all the time. I mean, that doesn't happen everywhere. And the uniqueness of the network in Rhode Island where so many people know each other. In this campaign, I've knocked on doors and found out that we were related. And that doesn't happen all over the country. And that's what's so unique about Rhode Island. And I always come home. I always love it here. So it's a great place for me to raise my family as well.
It sure is a great state. I've been living in this state pretty much my whole life. I want to thank you once again, Councilman Hopkins, for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure of mine to set this interview up, and I'm really glad we were able to make this happen.
It was a great opportunity for me as well to learn about you and to give you some of my ideas. I always talk about opportunity. Running for mayor is an opportunity, and sitting here talking to you, expressing my views is a great opportunity, and I really appreciate it.
Yep, and thank you once again for making this interview possible. It's been a pleasure of mine to have you on. And thank you once again for watching this episode of Ray-ality TV. If you want to watch all future episodes of Ray-ality TV when they're uploaded on this channel, you can click the subscribe button down below and then the post notification bell to the right of it. I'm your host, Raymond Bakari, and I'll see you on the next episode.